Welcome to this episode of the Evincible Deep Tech series, in which we focus on native mobile accessibility. From a user experience perspective, native and hybrid mobile apps play a huge role in digital access. It is essential that these applications be accessible for people with disabilities at home and on the go, from banking to transportation and through all aspects of modern life. As software engineers, it is important to establish a regular testing process for making your user interfaces accessible. So we're here today to talk about the state of accessibility testing for native mobile applications. I'm Marcy Sutton, independent web developer and accessibility specialist. I'm joined by expert panelists, Rob Whitaker, senior iOS software engineer, and Victoria Gonda, senior remote Android engineer. From Evinced, we're joined by co-founder and CEO Naveen Thadani, as well as Kevin Berg, systems engineer. We'll have a series of questions to discuss, and I am so curious to hear what you have to say. So Rob, let's start with you. What is working well for native mobile accessibility automation right now?
Well, I think the best thing with automated accessibility testing is kind of shortening that gap between getting the feedback and allowing developer engineers to get some information about the interfaces that they've built, and to get that information about how they can improve accessibility in them as quickly as possible. And really, although those are kind of the main sort of benefits, whether they're working that well right now, I don't completely know. I think that we definitely need some improvements in terms of making sure that these tools are reliable and reproducible and give information to the engineers about what they can do to make improvements.
I feel like it's a good point, especially for people who are just getting started and learning the basics. The automation I found is decently good at giving you information about the basic things like text contrast and is this touch target big enough? So when you're really getting into it and taking the first step into trying to make your app accessible, those first things that you want to look at, I found to be approachable with what we have today.
So on the flip side, so what's working well, what would you say are the biggest challenges with native mobile accessibility testing right now? And I'm thinking of things like the number of validations, any issues with platforms or frameworks kind of being, having friction, false positives or fragmented ecosystem. Like, are there certain aspects of native mobile accessibility testing that are challenging right now?
One thing that I think is challenging is once you get past those basic parts, a lot more of the testing brings in semantics and human interaction that you need to have knowledge of that a lot of people don't have the education for to verify that things are correctly. A scanner has a hard time being able to tell you if your elements are grouped together in a way that makes sense. So having those things is harder and takes a lot more education and buy-in and is a lot harder to do with automated testing. I won't say that it's impossible. We'll say anything is possible. But from what I've seen, it's very difficult to do with automated testing. And on top of that, with the automated testing, it's sometimes hard to eliminate noise once you've worked on something and moved forward. Maybe a scanner has flagged something, you've gone through and verified that, okay, yeah, like it was flagged, but I've gone through, made sure it's accessible. It's not really an issue right now. I don't want to keep getting this flag when I either run automated test or I'm running a scanner or whatever that is.
So, Rob, I'd love to hear from you. What would be your dream mobile accessibility testing tool, if there were such a thing?
Well, I guess I would echo a lot of what Victoria says, but let's kind of dream a little bit bigger. So, I mean, it would be something that would definitely know what the developer intention is. And yeah, I think as Victoria says, that's kind of some kind of magical thinking that maybe down the line in a few years' time we might get something like that. But it seems just incredibly difficult to do without human interaction. So if there's some kind of automated tool that could let us do that, that'd be fantastic. Something that would really give you no false positives. And when it does give you a genuine result, will give you all the information that you need to understand why it's a problem and how to fix it. Something that really allows the developer to have control over it as well. So as Victoria says, if it flags something as an issue, that you can mark that as being something that you know about and something that you're going to come back and fix, so that you can continue on with testing and not have that flagged up every time. Those would be excellent features, I think. I guess as well, something what I would personally really love to be able to do is to run automated accessibility testing as part of a CI/CD suite, and have that reliable enough to be part of that CI/CD suite. UI testing is often not reliable enough for a lot of places to run as part of their CI/CD suite anyway. So to get automated accessibility testing up to that standard, I think would be a massive job, but it would be awesome to see it get there.
Naveen, we'd love to hear from you on the Evinced side, as Evinced is launching new tools for native mobile accessibility testing this week. So what is your team releasing into the world?
Yeah, thanks, Marcy. So as you know, we're focused exclusively on accessibility, technology, and products. And as you stated very clearly in the beginning of this discussion, and we wholeheartedly agree with that you cannot think of accessibility or digital accessibility without also considering mobile. It is very fundamentally important today. And we started hearing that message from our customers and the ecosystem quite a few months ago. So since then, we've been hard at work trying to come up with a portfolio of products to help enterprises make their mobile apps or native mobile apps more accessible more easily. And there are a few different things that we've been working on. So essentially what we're talking about here is a full portfolio that allows enterprises to make both their iOS and Android apps more accessible, right? And there's two products we've built so far. The first one is what we call the Flow Analyzer for mobile. And of course, we'll demo this and all later today, but it's essentially meant for developers and test engineers to very easily connect their mobile phone to a desktop client and analyze the accessibility of that particular app. It could be a dev version of the app, it could be a production version of the app, whatever. So that's the first product. And then the second one, I think Rob alluded to this in his comments earlier, which is around automation, right? And more and more enterprises are trying to automate UI testing as much as they can, functional testing. That's true, of course, for the web, but it's also true for mobile. And we wanted a way for enterprises to take that investment that they've made in UI testing for mobile and also get accessibility insights from that. So to maximize the value of the investment they're already making. So if you have this battery of tests for UI testing for mobile, what if you could kind of take that and also automatically get as many accessibility insights as you can? That's the goal of the second product portfolio, which is around automation for mobile. Right? So we support iOS and Android. And when we looked at it, while it seems like there are two platforms, iOS and Android, there's actually a lot more nuances in there. For iOS, you've got UI Kit and Swift UI type of applications. For Android, you could have Vue, Vue Group, and Jetpack Compose. You also have a lot of cross-platform frameworks that are out there right now, like React Native. So we wanted to make sure that the solution that we built supports all of them in a seamless way and is easy to use and works out of the box, right? So that was a big part of what we were trying to accomplish. And then, and I think Victoria was talking about this as well, and even Rob alluded to this, that it has to fit into the way enterprises do things, right? And enterprises are testing with real devices, they're testing with simulators. Sometimes it's local, connected to their own network or even their own phones. Other times it's sitting in a device cloud somewhere. You have, if you're looking at automation, it needs to be able to run anywhere. So those were also important elements of the overall solution, that when you're trying to fit it into an enterprise and make it really useful for them, these are the kinds of things that you have to address. So that's really what we've been hard at work on for the last few months. And we're really happy to kind of release this to the world. In fact, the Flow Analyzer for mobile is a free product we're putting out there for the community. It's free for life. People can download it right off of the Evinced website and get going. And in fact, it looks something like this. Kevin's going to essentially do a quick demo, but from an architectural perspective, you can have either an iOS or an Android device running an app, essentially. And as I mentioned, it can be on a real device or an emulator. It can be locally connected, or it could be in the cloud, a device cloud like Source Labs or Perfecto or Browser Stack or whatever. And there's a really simple and easy way to pair that with the Evinced desktop client. And once you do that, you can pair it basically with a QR code or an IP address, which is really, really simple. And there's a desktop client. So all you got to do is fire up the app on your phone and click scan on the desktop client, and it's going to essentially go out and do the analysis for you. It'll show you what's broken from an accessibility point of view, how to fix it, point out exactly where it is, make sure the screenshots are there. And you can also very soon, incorporate this into your Jira process of opening tickets and things like that, right? So that's the idea of the Flow Analyzer for mobile. And essentially, there's some really interesting things about it. You don't need any SDK in the app, right? So you can basically test any app. One of the things that we've discovered along the way is a lot of times in enterprises, because they're so large and there's so many kind of processes around app development, a lot of times test engineers or even sometimes some developers don't have the ability necessarily or the permissions to put in SDKs into the app. So it was really important for us that we built an architecture where you do not need any SDK in the app, and we can use existing standardized interfaces in iOS and Android to get the information that we need in order to analyze it for accessibility. So that was very important. And then obviously we wanted to make it really simple to use, where it's just literally point and click. So we've tried to do that as well. And the output of it should be useful. And this goes to kind of what Rob was talking about earlier, which is around highlighting the type of error, showing you a screenshot and a locator so developers know exactly which piece is broken, suggestions on how to fix it so you can read about it in either a knowledge base or in the product itself. So all of that is there in the Flow Analyzer.
Okay, so let's hear from you, Kevin, and see this demo in action.
So what we have here on the right is the Evinced desktop client. I've simply downloaded that from the Evinced website, logged in, and connected my device. My device is connected right here. It's my Android device. We can see a representation of it here right on the screen. It was really simple to connect the device. For Android, all I have to do is scan a QR code and it'll automatically connect. Once I've got everything connected, I can simply just browse to the application on the phone. And on the right, you can see I've got a great big scan button. And that's going to allow me to quite literally scan any application on this phone. So let's go ahead and launch my app here. I have just a very simple podcast app. And so now I've essentially just gotten onto the home page of the app. I can go ahead and click scan. Great. So this initial page doesn't have any issues. We'll go ahead and complete a flow. And this tool is called the Flow Analyzer, because what I can do here is manually go through an entire flow in an application and scan for accessibility issues at every point along the way. So my next step here is I've opened up the menu. And so at this point, I of course want to scan again for some issues. Great. So I've got a tappable area issue that we need to take a look at. I can go ahead and look at the add a podcast screen. Scan that. Some more things here, some best practices. And then why don't we go ahead and we'll go to one of the podcasts, scan that screen. And then I can go ahead and look at a podcast. Now, here we can see we found a critical issue, accessible name. And so what we can do is unfurl this. And here we get a great description of what the issue is and the impact that it would have on a potential user. It has no accessible label, meaning that it's impossible to interact with using assistive technology. So this is going to be an issue that is going to prevent it's going to be a functional blocker to using this application at this point. And so, you know, we get a lot of information here. We get the class name of the image so we can find it quickly. The developers have exactly what they need to pinpoint the issue. And by clicking on this link here, it'll take us to the Evinced knowledge base that has high-level quick fixes, some code snippets, as well as some of the theory behind, you know, why this issue happened and how we can prevent and understand how to prevent this type of issue from happening in the future. So we've captured a number of pages here throughout this flow. And the nice thing is that we can have a consolidated report generated at the end of our flow by simply clicking this button. And this will create an HTML report that contains all of these issues. We can put that right into our issue tracking and use that to communicate with our developers to fix any potential issues that we found throughout our flow.
So that was the mobile flow analyzer that we've built. Again, it supports, Kevin showed Android, but it supports both iOS and Android, different kinds of apps. Let's also talk a little bit about the automation SDK. Kevin showed was, you have to, navigate your app manually and then hit scan, and then Evinced does the analysis automatically, right? That was the purpose of the first product. But obviously you can now envision if an enterprise development team has UI automation for their mobile app as well. One of the goals was that we wanted to be able to plug into that and into the CI/CD process that Victoria and Rob were talking about earlier. And that's how this works. Essentially, you've got an existing functional test, and it could be anything for iOS or Android. Meaning in iOS, you could have an XC UI test based automation test, or you could have Appium. And in the case of Android, it could be Espresso or UI Automator or Appium. So whatever test you've got, we want to be able to conceptually just insert Evinced in there and then have the rest of the flow just be done naturally as it's normally being done. So it goes from there, the test executes in your CI infrastructure, again, whether that's on emulators or real devices, whether that's in your data center or in device cloud somewhere. All of that stays essentially the same. And then what you get out of it is either an HTML report, which I showed you earlier, or you get a JSON report, which allows you to do more programmatic things with it. And again, this, of course, would be stored with all of your test results and all of the documentation that developers would expect. So this is the way that we think is going to, we wanted this whole thing to work, as in just inject Evinced into your existing process with your existing testing, automated testing, and then you get accessibility insights as well. And the way that works is to basically quickly add Evinced as a dependency. So you can do that in your test framework and then add Evinced into your existing test with a simple method that you need to inject. And that's it. After that, it's going to execute the way it normally would, and you get basically a rich HTML report or a JSON report, and that's it. So you don't do anything specifically. The test is driving the app, and Evinced is automatically analyzing it in the background. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to show you a demo. I think, Kevin, you've got an Appium demo planned.
I have my IntelliJ IDE set up here, and what we can do here is we're looking at just a very simple Appium test and how we can incorporate the Evinced Appium SDK and scan for accessibility issues in our existing Appium tests. So the first place we can look here is we have our just normal iOS Appium driver instantiation. And what we need to do is just simply pass that to our Evinced Appium wrapper. Now, this isn't going to impact any of your existing functionality. You're going to be able to connect to your Appium server just like you always have. What we're doing is just simply adding the capabilities that we need to the Appium driver to scan for accessibility issues as we go. And so the next step is, just like we did in the mobile flow analyzer, we can simply add the points at which we'd like to scan. So in our Appium test, the first thing that Appium does automatically for us is launch the app, and we'll land on the landing page. And then we just simply add to our test an analyze method. And so what that's going to do is it's going to grab a snapshot and grab the underlying hierarchy of the element structure, and so that we can scan it for accessibility issues. So then we can proceed with our test, and we can use some logic here. After we click on any particular thing that either reveals more of the app or takes us to a no page, we can simply add another accessibility scan here at all of those particular points. And what that'll do is give us the maximum amount of coverage of our application as possible. So then when our test is complete, we have a few options. We can, if we're looking to add, like say, a gating process for accessibility in our CI/CD pipeline, we can go ahead and assert, so that if we find some accessibility issues, we'll go ahead and flag those and fail the build, so that the developers know to grab those. And it's always easier to fix those issues earlier in the pipeline, because it's faster, cheaper, and easier to fix without time having gone by and the developer switching context. And so I have this test set up to run on Sauce Labs. And so this is a remote iOS simulator that we'll run on. And at this point, now that we've got our Appium test set up to scan for accessibilities violations as well, we'll go ahead and kick it off. So that test is running. And at this point, we can go over to the Sauce Labs dashboard. Log in. And that will take us right to the point here. And so that we can see under the automated tests and test results, we can see our accessibility test running. So while that's running, I'll go ahead, we can take a look at the same test I ran a few minutes ago, and we can see that our Appium test ran exactly as expected here. We've got, it's launching our application, walking through the functionality of our app, and along the way, we went ahead and captured all the information we need to scan for accessibility along the way. And so the test is completed, the test happened to pass, and at the end, we get a full accessibility report. And I've got an example of the HTML file here as well. And so here we can see we've got a snapshot of the application and highlighted element that is in question here. So for example, here that's an accessible name element. Again, that will link us to our knowledge base with both the quick fixes and the theory behind what causes these types of issues. We've got severity, element ID, and a description as well. And that's for all of the different points and scans that we captured, allowing for you to both identify, quickly pinpoint, and remediate any accessibility issues with this comprehensive report. So that's how easy it is to add accessibility tests to your existing Appium, and our SDKs work almost exactly the same for both XUI test, Espresso, UI Automator, exactly like that.
And that's pretty much it from Evinced. So again, 2 products. The first one is the mobile flow analyzer. This one is a free product for the whole community to use. Download it from the Evinced website. And then, of course, we have the automation solution for enterprises. And even for that, there's actually a 2-week free trial that you can download from the website itself, get started. We have all the developer documentation there. So we're standing by to answer any questions, or if anybody has any concerns about how it works, we're happy to jump in and demonstrate it. No problem.
Sure. I have a follow-up question. I'm curious how, what makes these tools unique compared to other native accessibility tools on the market? Like, it looks easy to adopt, but yeah, what's kind of your edge and the unique thing about the Evinced solutions?
Yeah, when we looked at the whole state of accessibility testing from a mobile app perspective, at least our conclusion was that there's quite a bit of fragmentation in terms of the market. You've got Apple's own tools that help you with iOS, and even for that, it's like hard to automate that. It's not really easy to build an automation solution with the native tools that are there. And then Google, of course, does their own system for Android. Again, it is possible to automate it there, but it doesn't really do iOS very well. And you don't have a common solution. And if you're an enterprise and you're looking at doing things at scale, you don't have the luxury anymore of, doing only iOS or doing only Android. And, an enterprise has to have apps of the same level for both platforms, both for the US as well as around the world. And when you're trying to automate your UI testing, when you're trying to get accessibility right in general consistently, it's not easy to do it with the current state of the ecosystem. That's why we thought that there's an opportunity here for us to step in and try to help and use similar sorts of technologies like we're using for the web, like the UI, UX analysis, all the advanced algorithms that we built to analyze the UI and the UX, and then based on that, derive certain accessibility issues. You put the two together, the market need as well as our existing capabilities that we could adapt to try to build a solution for mobile. And here we are. That was the thinking.
And did I catch that it also works for React Native and hybrid applications?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So not only React Native, but other hybrid frameworks as well, like Xamarin and others. We've tested quite a few of them, and it supports those as well.
Super cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for the demos and showing us what you're launching this week. That's super exciting. I am curious, sort of coming back to our expert panelists, Rob, can you tell us how you utilize the web content accessibility guidelines in your work for native mobile?
Yeah, it's a difficult one really with web content accessibility guidelines because they still very much cover what we need to do in mobile. That's really the benchmark by how we decide whether something is accessible or not. But everything is really not written there with mobile in mind. And I think that does cause some problems with understanding sometimes. A lot of people who are experts in web content accessibility guidelines are maybe not as expert in mobile. And so there's certain things that they either miss or consider as failures without them really being failures, I think, on mobile. But also, I think it does for anybody who's a mobile engineer wanting to know a bit more about what they need to do for accessibility. I think it does turn them off a little bit as well, because, well, they're reading it and it keeps talking about HTML and CSS and various very much web-specific technologies. What does that mean to a mobile engineer? There's a lot of translation required in that. It always amuses me that there's rules in WCAG for Silverlight, but none for either Android or iOS. That always kind of makes me laugh. But yeah, it's a super important part of mobile accessibility. We need to make sure that we're following those guidelines, and that kind of fits in with the automated testing, really, that any automated testing needs to follow those as well, because that's the benchmark that everybody uses. So there's certainly things that we could say, this is not great for accessibility, or this could be improved, but if that's not part of WCAG, then really that's just your opinion. So the WCAG is really what we need to follow.
Okay, thank you. So how does Evinced approach WCAG for its products in native mobile? Like, do you have a certain approach, a way of thinking about this that folks can connect the web content accessibility guidelines with the work that they would do using your flow analyzer or the automation SDK?
Yeah, in both the flow analyzer and the automation SDKs that we have for mobile are built on the same engines underneath. So the technology is the same. And the way we approached the problem was as Rob had mentioned, and also Victoria alluded to in the beginning, is looking at the WCAG guidelines, of course, and trying to derive as much of it as we could in terms of validations we can build for the mobile side of things. But also talking to some of our customers, talking to practitioners and experts in the field. In fact, Rob has written a book on this, as has Victoria now. So congratulations to both of you. I think that's fantastic. So we look at that kind of information. We look at the web content accessibility guidelines, as we talked about earlier. We also interviewed a lot of the manual QA and accessibility experts that focus exclusively on accessibility at large enterprises, and they test mobile apps, the kinds of issues that they find manually that we could potentially automate. So we take input from all these different sources and try to figure out, what are the kinds of things that we can automate quickly. And of course, we have a backlog. There's a lot more coming. We've got a core set of things that we detect and find today. And there's more that we add to that based on our learnings, based on what our customers tell us, based on the kinds of issues that we see out in the field. So that's the approach that we take to trying to figure out what we want to build here and how we want to try to help.
Very cool. Thank you so much for all of that. Victoria, I'd love to hear from you. Are there any resources that you would recommend for people looking to get started with native mobile accessibility testing?
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of good resources out there, but two that I'll mention. One is if you're really just getting started, I found the Android guides to be a good starting point. They have kind of some translations from the WCAG guidelines to what that means on Android, as far as like sizes and lots of different translations and things that you need to know just for the basics. How do you test on Android? What are some of the first things that you look out for? So that's one place to start. And then selfishly, as you mentioned, I have a book, Android Accessibility by Tutorials. That's kind of a longer form than you'll get from the Android guides that cover a bit more topics. So that's also one resource that you can use.
Congratulations. That's super awesome. Rob, how about from you? Are there any resources that come to mind? I know you have a really helpful Twitter account and website for mobile accessibility. Is there any other resources that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out the human interface guidelines, which is kind of Apple's equivalent of, as Victoria mentions, the Google's Android guidelines there. They don't specifically cover anything in WCAG, but they do have a lot of considerations of how to make the app accessible, really from very much an iOS focused point of view. And so if you are wanting to start, that's probably the best place to go, because it will all make sense as an iOS engineer rather than having to try and translate what WCAG means. Specifically for automated testing, if I may, I'm going to suggest my book. So I have a book, Developing Inclusive Mobile Apps, and there is a whole section in there on automated accessibility testing, where I review various different tools available for both platforms, both ones that will run completely automated and ones that you have to navigate yourself, but will kind of scan the app as well. So there's a bit of an assessment in there in terms of some of the options that are available. As of about a year ago, I think this has, the landscape has changed somewhat since the book came out, with tools like Evinced becoming available now. But yeah, I definitely recommend that. And as you mentioned, I do have a Twitter account and blog, Mobile Ally, which is A11Y. And I try and add content in there as much as I can, as often as I can, to cover various different aspects of mobile accessibility. As soon as somebody asks me a question more than once, I usually write a blog on it. So it's worth checking out, I think.
I would agree. It is definitely worth checking out. And yeah, thank you so much for your recommendations. To all of the panelists, do you have any final thoughts on how to make native mobile accessibility successful?
One thing that I always say is don't try to go it alone, especially if you're in a company that isn't supporting you or backing, giving you the buy-in to spend the time to improve the accessibility testing in your company. Find some people either within your company or even outside your company that you can talk with and communicate with and support each other, because there's lots of us who want to make this better. It's very important, even if your manager doesn't think so. So don't try to go it alone. We are all here to support each other.
That's a really good point, Victoria. I think to try to see how we can expand upon that a little bit as well. We're very open to getting suggestions and feedback from the community. So if there are certain things that you think you'd love to see automated, so for example, if there's a particular validation that we don't have, but you would love to see it there because you see those kinds of issues quite commonly, you think they're especially painful when they exist, we'd love to hear that, because that gives us ideas on what else we can work on and how we can further improve, and kind of roll that into the portfolio that we have, both the free product as well as on the enterprise side as well. But we're open to any suggestions, any feedback, ideas. Happy to engage with the community and do the best we can.
I love that. Evinced is hungry for feedback. Might be hard to get the ear of big giants like Google and Apple at the same level. So that's pretty awesome. Wow, I feel so much more informed about native mobile accessibility, and hopefully you do as well. This session of the Evincible Deep Tech series has explored the state of testing tools for iOS, Android, React Native, and more. I want to thank our expert panelists, Victoria Gonda and Rob Whitaker, as well as Naveen Thadani and Kevin Berg from Evinced. You can find Evinced on Twitter at Evinced_A11Y, on their website, evinced.com, and also on LinkedIn. I'm Marcy Sutton. Thanks for tuning in.